A language with no relatives, no clear origin, no linguistic family to call its own. Hidden in the mountains between Spain and France, the Basque language has survived empires, wars, and the relentless passage of time. While Latin spread across Europe, while Indo-European languages evolved and dominated entire continents, this one remained untouched, isolated, defiant, a voice from a world long forgotten. For centuries, scholars tried to decode it. They compared it to dozens of ancient tongues. They searched for patterns, roots, connections, but found nothing. It was as if this language had appeared out of nowhere. A ghost from prehistory, still spoken in the modern world. But now something has changed. A groundbreaking scientific discovery. Ancient DNA. Genetic traces buried for over 10,000 years. Finally revealing a hidden story. A story that could explain not just a language, but an entire civilization lost in time. How did the Basque language survive when all others vanished? And what secrets has it been hiding for more than 10 millennia? The mystery begins deep in prehistoric Europe. Long before written history, before kingdoms, before even the first cities emerged. Around 10,500 years ago, as the last ice age slowly released its grip, small groups of hunter-gatherers spread across the continent. They moved through dense forests, crossed rivers of melting ice, and settled in isolated valleys. Among them, one group would unknowingly carry something extraordinary, a linguistic identity that would resist extinction. Fast forward thousands of years, and nearly every language spoken across Europe would belong to a single vast family. Indo-European, from English to Spanish, from Russian to Hindi, all connected, all sharing a common ancestral root. But the Basque language stands completely apart. It does not resemble Latin. It does not echo Celtic. It shares no structure with Germanic or Slavic tongues. It is a linguistic anomaly, a survivor from a time before modern Europe even existed. Historians have long debated its origins. Some believed it was linked to ancient Iberians. Others suggested connections to the Caucasus or even North Africa. Yet every theory collapsed under scrutiny. No solid proof. No definitive link. Just silence. And a growing mystery that refused to be solved. How could a language remain so perfectly isolated for over 10 millennia? The breakthrough did not begin with words, but with bones. Deep inside ancient caves scattered across northern Spain, archaeologists uncovered human remains dating back thousands of years. Silent witnesses of a forgotten past. Among these sites, one stood out. A burial ground untouched for millennia, where skeletons lay preserved beneath layers of earth and time. At first glance, they revealed nothing unusual. But scientists knew better. Hidden within those fragile remains was something far more powerful than artifacts or inscriptions. DNA. Ancient, degraded, but still carrying the genetic memory of an entire people. Using cutting-edge sequencing technology, researchers began extracting genetic material from these bones. Each fragment was like a puzzle piece, incomplete, fragile, but essential. As the data slowly came together, a pattern began to emerge. Something unexpected. Something that challenged everything historians thought they knew. These individuals were not just random inhabitants of prehistoric Europe. Their genetic signature showed continuity, a direct, unbroken line connecting them to modern populations in the Basque region. A living bridge between the present and a world over 10,000 years old. For the first time, the mystery of the Basque language was no longer just linguistic. It had become biological. But how could DNA explain the survival of a language? The investigation quickly intensified, drawing together geneticists, archaeologists, and linguists from across the world. Laboratories became war rooms of discovery, filled with glowing screens and fragments of ancient code waiting to be deciphered. The challenge was immense. Ancient DNA is fragile, often contaminated, and incomplete. Every sample risked distortion. Every conclusion demanded absolute precision. Scientists compared genomes from prehistoric hunter-gatherers, early farmers, and later migrating populations who reshaped Europe during the Neolithic Revolution. And then, a critical moment emerged. Around 7,000 years ago, waves of agricultural communities spread from Anatolia into Europe, bringing not only farming, but new languages. These migrations transformed the continent. Entire cultures vanished or were absorbed. Languages disappeared without a trace. But in the western edge of Europe, something different happened. The Basque region remained genetically distinct. Isolated by mountains, shielded from massive population replacement, its people preserved a unique ancestral signature. Yet the data was not perfectly clean. There were gaps, contradictions, unexpected traces of admixture that complicated the narrative. Some scientists questioned the continuity. Others argued the evidence was still incomplete. The deeper they looked, the more complex the story became. It was no longer just about survival, but about resistance, adaptation, and isolation. Could this genetic resilience be the key to preserving an ancient language against all odds? The answer came from the most precise tool modern science possesses: a full genomic reconstruction. Researchers pushed beyond partial samples and fragmented sequences, assembling high-resolution DNA maps from both ancient remains and present-day Basque populations. This was no longer speculation. It was measurable, verifiable, and what they found was staggering. Despite thousands of years of migration sweeping across Europe, the genetic core of the Basque people remained strikingly consistent. While surrounding populations were repeatedly reshaped by incoming groups carrying Indo-European languages, the Basques experienced far less replacement. Instead, they absorbed small external influences without losing their ancestral identity. This subtle balance changed everything, because language, unlike DNA, does not always survive conquest. It disappears when populations are replaced or culturally overwhelmed. But here, the genetic continuity revealed something extraordinary. The people never fully disappeared, and because they endured, so did their language. The Basque tongue was not an isolated anomaly. It was the last living echo of pre-Indo-European Europe, a direct linguistic fossil still spoken today. The mystery that baffled scholars for centuries now had a scientific foundation. Not magic, not coincidence, but survival through isolation, geography, and time. A language preserved not just by culture, but by bloodlines stretching back over 10,000 years. Now, piece by piece, scientists began to reconstruct the past, not as fragments of theory, but as a living sequence of events. Imagine a Europe in transition. Forests stretching endlessly. Small, scattered tribes moving with the seasons. Then, a slow but unstoppable wave arrives, early farmers from the Ashurk of the continent, bringing new tools, new beliefs, and new languages that would one day dominate nearly all of Europe. These groups expand rapidly, replacing or absorbing the ancient hunter-gatherers who had lived there for millennia. Entire identities vanish in silence. But in the rugged terrain of the western Pyrenees, something different unfolds. Natural barriers rise like silent guardians: mountains, dense valleys, harsh climates. The advancing populations slow down. Interaction happens, but not total replacement. The local groups adapt. They exchange knowledge, perhaps even intermarry, yet they hold on to something deeper. Their ancestral tongue. Generation after generation, it is spoken, preserved, passed down not through conquest, but through continuity. While the rest of Europe transforms linguistically, this region becomes a time capsule. A place where the ancient world refuses to disappear. Over thousands of years, the outside world changes beyond recognition. Empires rise and fall, Latin spreads, modern nations form, but in these valleys, echoes of a prehistoric language still survive. Not unchanged, but unmistakably ancient. A direct line connecting modern voices to a world that should have been lost forever. In the end, the Basque language is more than just a linguistic curiosity. It is a living relic of humanity's deepest past, a voice that has endured while countless others faded into silence. For over 10,500 years, it survived migrations, cultural revolutions, and the rise of powerful empires that reshaped entire continents. And now, through the lens of modern science, we finally understand why. Not because it was untouched, but because the people who carried it were never fully erased. Their genetic continuity became the shield that protected their identity, allowing their language to echo across millennia. This discovery does more than solve a mystery. It reshapes our understanding of Europe's origins, revealing that beneath the layers of modern civilization, fragments of the ancient world are still alive among us. It forces us to ask a deeper question. How many other hidden stories are still waiting to be uncovered, buried in our DNA, in our cultures, in the words we speak every day? If a single language can survive for over 10,000 years, What else has endured unnoticed? If you found this journey fascinating, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and dive deeper into the unknown with us. Because history is not just something we study, it is something we are still discovering.